It's after midnight in the Amazon. The flashlight catches movement in the leaf litter, and then it stops moving toward you, and you stop breathing. Because the thing on the forest floor is the size of a dinner plate. 8 legs spanning nearly a foot, a body as long as your hand and as heavy as a billiard ball. And as you lean in, it does something no spider is supposed to do. It makes a sound, a dry, rasping hiss you can hear from 15 feet away. Then it rears back, lifts its front legs, and shows you 2 fangs the length of a cheetah's claw. This is not a movie prop. This is not CGI. This is a real animal, alive right now, hunting in the dark of the rainforest tonight. And if a spider this big is already real, already out there, already this far past what your brain says a spider is allowed to be, then the obvious question writes itself. How much bigger could they get? And could something larger still be out there, in the parts of the jungle we've never walked? The answer is stranger than the legend. This is the Goliath Birdeater, and the truth about giant spiders is hiding in a place nobody thinks to look. Let's meet the real animal first, because it barely needs exaggerating. The Goliath Birdeater is the largest spider on Earth. Not by a little, by a category. Its legs span up to a foot across, its body grows to 5 inches, and it weighs as much as 6 ounces, roughly the heft of a pool ball, which makes it heavy enough that people who've heard one walking across dead leaves describe the sound as hooves. A spider with footsteps. Let that settle in for a second. Its fangs reach well over an inch, genuinely long enough to puncture a mouse's skull like a pair of hypodermic needles. And they fold down to pump neurotoxin into whatever the spider has pinned. To prey its own size, that venom is lethal. To you, it's roughly a bad wasp sting. The size is the threat, not the poison. And then there's the hiss. Most spiders are utterly silent. The Goliath isn't. When something large leans too close, it rubs the bristles on its legs together, a process called stridulation, and produces a rasping warning loud enough to carry across a small room. It can functionally tell you to back off, out loud, which is 15 feet closer than I ever needed a spider to be able to talk to me. If the hiss doesn't work, it has a second weapon that's almost worse. It rakes its back legs across its own abdomen and fires a cloud of tiny barbed hairs into the air. Harpoon-shaped bristles that lodge in eyes, skin, and lungs, and itch for days. In a small predator, like a curious mouse, those airborne hairs can be fatal. So that's the resident, a fist-sized, hissing, hair-flinging, mouse-killing giant that walks loudly enough to hear. And here's the part that reframes the whole thing. It lives across a huge stretch of the northern Amazon, and we still find its relatives all the time. To ask whether a bigger spider is hiding, you have to understand just how much room the Amazon has to hide one. The rainforest is not really a place. It's a stack of worlds piled on top of each other. The flooded floor, the dim understory, the dense mid-level, and the sunlit canopy 100+ feet up. Each layer with its own animals, many of which never travel between them. A scientist standing on the ground is, in a real sense, looking up at an entire ecosystem they cannot reach. The treetops of the Amazon are so unexplored that biologists have a nickname for them, the last unmapped continent on Earth. Except it's stacked vertically, in the air, above our heads. And it is absolutely packed with spiders we've never named. New tarantula species are described from South America on a regular basis. Electric blue ones, tree-dwelling ones found in a single valley and nowhere else. Every serious expedition into a remote pocket of the basin tends to come back with arachnids that have no scientific name, because no scientist had ever been standing in that exact spot before. So when someone asks, could a giant spider be hiding in the Amazon? The honest first answer is, spiders are absolutely hiding in the Amazon, by the hundreds of species. We have cataloged only a fraction of what lives in that green dark, and we add to the list faster than we can keep up. The real question isn't whether there are spiders out there we haven't met. It's whether any of them could be bigger than the Goliath. And to answer that, you have to stop looking at the jungle and start looking at the spider's own body. Here is the thing almost nobody knows about giant spiders, and it's the actual heart of this story. The reason there is no spider the size of a dog is not that the jungle is too small, or the prey too scarce, or the predators too fierce. It's that the spider would suffocate inside its own design. A spider doesn't breathe the way you do. It has no expanding lungs pulling air deep into its body. Instead, it has book lungs, stacked page-like folds of tissue that absorb oxygen passively by simple diffusion near the surface of the body. That works beautifully at small scale. But oxygen can only seep so far inward on its own. Make the spider bigger, and the middle of its body starts to starve because the air physically cannot reach the core fast enough. The lungs don't scale. Its blood has the same problem. A spider has an open circulatory system, no high-pressure pump forcing fluid out to the limbs the way your heart does. It sloshes a fluid called hemolymph around a body cavity at low pressure. In fact, spiders extend some of their legs using hydraulic pressure rather than muscle. Build a spider too large, and it simply can't generate the pressure to work its own legs. You'd have a magnificent monster that couldn't stand up. And then there's the cruelest limit of all, the molt. To grow, a spider must shed its entire exoskeleton and emerge soft, like wet paper, while a new shell hardens. A small spider can survive those vulnerable hours, but the bigger the animal, the more its own weight crushes it during that helpless window. A truly giant spider would essentially collapse under itself before its new armor set. The square cube law, the same brutal math that says you can't simply scale a mouse up to elephant size, comes for the spider hardest of all. So picture it. The Amazon has unlimited prey, endless hiding places, a 100-foot canopy of untouched territory. It would happily grow a bigger spider. The only thing standing in the way is the spider's own plumbing. The cage isn't the jungle. The cage is the body. The giant spider isn't hiding from us out there in the dark. It's hiding behind a set of lungs that refuse to get any larger. That's why the Goliath is the king. It isn't just big. It is sitting almost exactly at the ceiling, the largest a spider's body plan will physically permit on the earth we live on now. Notice the careful wording there, on the earth we live on now. Because there was a version of this planet where the rules were different, and it produced something the world has spent decades getting completely wrong. In 1980, in Argentina, a paleontologist named Mario Huniken pulled a fossil out of 300-million-year-old rock and realized he was holding something extraordinary. A huge, round carapace, the hint of jointed legs, eye-like structures near the front. It looked unmistakably like an enormous tarantula. He named it Megarachne, Great Spider. And the measurements were staggering. An estimated body over a foot long, and a leg span around 50 centimeters, nearly twice the Goliath. For the next 25 years, Megarachne held the title in every textbook and every documentary, the largest spider that had ever lived. A genuine prehistoric monster. Except there was one small problem. In 2005, the original fossil and a new specimen were finally re-examined by a team of paleontologists, including Huniken himself, to his enormous credit. And under proper study, the great spider fell apart. The carapace was the wrong shape. Key features that define a true spider simply weren't there. What he'd actually found, it turned out, was a eurypterid, a sea scorpion, an extinct aquatic arthropod only distantly related to spiders at all. So the largest spider that ever lived had one fatal flaw. It was not a spider. For 25 years, the most fearsome arachnid in the fossil record was a clerical error wearing a costume. The monster didn't go extinct. It was never there. And that leaves a strange, quiet gap in the record. Because once you remove the imposter, what's the largest real spider we've ever found? Here's where it gets genuinely eerie, because there absolutely was a time when giant bugs ruled the Earth. Roughly 300 million years ago, in a period called the Carboniferous, the planet was one vast, dripping swamp forest, and all that dense vegetation pumped the atmosphere full of oxygen. Levels ran far higher than today, possibly close to 50% higher. And remember the wall from earlier? The reason spiders can't grow large is that oxygen can't diffuse deep enough into a big body. So crank the oxygen up and the ceiling lifts. The arthropods went berserk. There were millipede relatives, a creature called Arthropleura, that grew longer than a human is tall, the size of a small couch crawling across the forest floor. There were dragonflies, the Meganeura, with the wingspan of a hawk. For a few million years, the bugs got their golden age. Everything you fear about giant insects was briefly, genuinely real. And the spiders? They mostly sat it out. Even in that oxygen-rich paradise, the largest spider we have ever actually found in the fossil record, a creature called Megarachne, had a leg span of only about 6 inches. Impressive, the size of a large wolf spider, but nowhere near the Goliath, let alone the monster Megarachne pretended to be. When the whole planet handed the arthropods a once-in-an-eon chance to become giants, the millipedes and dragonflies took it. The spiders politely declined, which tells you the wall isn't just about oxygen. The whole spider body plan, the lungs, the open circulation, the molt, the hydraulic legs, is so committed to being small and efficient that even the most generous atmosphere in Earth's history couldn't force a true giant out of it. The spider isn't kept small by the world, it's kept small by being a spider.
So, could giant spiders still be hiding in the Amazon?
Here's the honest answer, and it's better than the legend. There is no dog-sized horror waiting in the deep jungle, because the physics won't allow it. A spider that large would starve in the middle, fail to pump its own legs, and crush itself the first time it tried to grow. The Goliath bird-eater you met tonight isn't just big, it is the ceiling. It's standing on the exact line where a spider's body gives out, and it has been standing there for a very long time. But don't relax all the way, because the Amazon is still throwing new spiders at science faster than we can name them. The canopy above the basin is one of the least explored environments on the planet, a vertical continent we've barely set foot in. We thought we knew the biggest spider that ever lived, and it turned out to be a sea scorpion. We are constantly genuinely wrong about what's out there, in both directions. So no, there is no secret monster twice the size of the Goliath, gliding through the dark. The real giant isn't hiding in the jungle at all. It's hiding in plain sight, on the forest floor, exactly as large as a spider is ever allowed to be. And we've only just started counting how many of its cousins are up there in the trees we've never climbed. We found the biggest spider on Earth a long time ago. What we still don't know is how many we've walked straight past.